Hello, this is Gareth from the iMoot team. It is my great pleasure to welcome Joseph Thibault, who's going to talk about his keynote on a look at the economy of Moodle. He's a very well-known person, been running Moodle News for years and years and years, and another website called Moodle Garage to really sponsor and promote plugins and people. Is now also, I believe, a member of the Moodle Users Association, so really looking forward to this. Thank you, Joseph, for putting the time to put your presentation together and for your time to present it now. Over to you. Thank you.
My pleasure. And those aren't even not even my day jobs. So I appreciate the intro. First of all, welcome. And honestly, I have to first say that I was quite flattered to be added as a keynote for the iMoot. This is, I think, my 5th year participating. I was an original presenter back in 2010 and only missed 1 year since doing presentations for the iMoot. I think it's, I have to commend the iMoot organizers and thank Gareth for giving me a nice introduction. But this is really just a high quality event that contributes a significant amount of great videos and tutorials and information to the community through YouTube after, but also through and available through the site to current participants. They're just a wealth of knowledge and something that I have referred back to again and again. So before I get started, I want to introduce Ben. This is a real student who I've worked with in the past. He will show up now and again through the presentation, and I hope it will help to illustrate what I'm going to kind of propose as a way to think about the Moodle community worldwide. My experience with him really has been as in an academic sense. Ben was a student and I was running a Moodle site, and we will come back to him. So everybody can say goodbye to Ben for now, but he will be back. So my keynote title was The Economy of Moodle. And when I say that, I'm really trying to posit that there is a nascent but growing economy that would not exist but for this open source learning management system, which we have come to love. I'm going to talk about it in a couple of different ways, some of which you might need to use your imagination a little bit and think back to college or higher education and Econ 101. So economy has a definition of, it's kind of the wealth and resources of a country or region, especially in terms of production and consumption of goods and services, which is a really dry way of, it's everything that happens. And in this case, it's the industry that has been created surrounding and relying upon Moodle as infrastructure. Now, we'll also look at it in terms of, there's microeconomics, which is the behavior of individuals and firms making decisions regarding the allocation of limited resources. So this might be like the students and developers and teachers. And then there's also the macro level. So macroeconomics is the study of the aggregate economy and how it behaves. So it's the industry as a whole and its growth and development. What I hope to illustrate is that Moodle's grown and facilitated quite a large economy. I want to highlight some of the cool stuff that I think is happening and the rosy future that it entails for Moodle. Couple of caveats. Now, I'm not an economist. I did not do a real economic study of Moodle, though I believe that one probably could be done. I'm not going to talk about economic multipliers or unemployment rates of Moodlers or GDP of Moodle. And I promise not to throw out any guesses at the total economic impact that Moodle has had, though I think someone should probably do that at some point because it's probably quite large of a number. Now, you probably are familiar with this diagram. And in keeping with our lesson on Econ 101, this image is a slide from Martin's keynote last year where he was introducing and detailing the Moodle Users Association. And what struck me lately is that really this is a diagram that shows shows all of the direct economic impacts of Moodle. This is how HQ is funded. So there's one established source of funding, which is the Moodle partners, and one new and growing source, which is the Moodle Users Association. These both and together provide their funding to Moodle HQ, which coordinates and manages development, which is then provided back to the community in the form of a downloadable package, right? Moodle's latest release. Aside from the odd contract or donation, that's generally how Moodle is funded. If you were to add up all of the membership fees of Moodle User Association and all of the annual revenue of the partners, essentially what you've calculated is the direct economy of Moodle. It's a finite and measurable amount of money flowing into the development annually that's going into supporting Moodle.org and Moodle HQ, facilitating both the community and development of Moodle. In economics, though, there is also this idea of indirect economic impact. And so what is this? This is, in some cases, it's, or in economic terms, this is also called the secondary economic impact or the induced economic impact. It's the secondary effects of spending are of two types, indirect and induced. Indirect effects are the changes in sales, income, or jobs in sectors within the region that supply goods and services to the sectors. That is a very dry way of explaining it. Maybe if we use an analogy, it'd be a little bit easier. So to compare it to a different industry, which you might be a little bit more familiar with, or not, but something that's easier to imagine. Imagine the tourism industry, for example, a ski resort. Now, the direct economic impact of a ski resort is the money that's coming in for lodging on the mountain, the ski passes that people are for, and the people that the mountain needs to employ in order to run. Now, the indirect economic impact, or the secondary or induced economic impact, is much broader, right? So it includes service workers to support skiers as they're going to get food off the mountain, the trucks that are required to deliver that food to the restaurants, the property owners of those restaurants, the ski shop down the road that's selling equipment, or even the gas station on the mountain road that will allow people to fill up their tanks and get home. There is value to those services and products as well, which might not exist but for the ski resort. So hopefully you're still with me. And what I want to talk about are the induced or these indirect economic impacts from the direct economic impact of Moodle. And that's what we're going to explore. Now, I did not come up with this phrase. I think Martin is the first person that came up with this turn of phrase. And his point, I think, was to suggest that Moodle is simply infrastructure in somewhat of the same way that the internet is infrastructure. Moving from Moodle to Moodle for an end user should be as familiar to you as, you know, if checking out between Amazon or checking out on Google Play. It works the same and it's generally acceptable. If it's working correctly, your learning progress, your credentials, your certificates and credits are all saved for you, and the experience is somewhat seamless from site to site. If this is a layer, then what it's done is created a foundation for all of these indirect economic transactions and impacts to accrue and to occur. So let's take another leap. If this truly is a layer, and that layer is measured, what would be the economy of Moodle? Then who's engaged in it at a micro level, and who are the individual players that are part of this? So let's do a little poll. 1 second as I frantically type this in, and I apologize for the click clacking in the background. But I'm curious to see, and I know this is going to be a little bit of a small poll, who is represented in the audience today. And if you're not included in the poll, I would please feel free to just throw it in the options. Oh, it won't let me vote. Okay. So it looks like we have teacher, administrator, we have one developer, and nobody has fallen into the others. So obviously there's no wrong answer, and I'm glad to see that there's a mix across the board, which sets up my nice slide pretty nicely. So we're all participants in this economy of Moodle. Even if you don't identify as a Moodler yet, right? You're engaged in the economy by paying the iMoot to a registration fee to come here. So conferences like this are just another indirect economic impact of Moodle. In the next couple of slides, what I want to do is call attention to some of the specific ideas, trends, and people that I think are examples of this indirect economic impact. It's things that would not be possible but for Moodle being available. So the first is people. Developers and instructional designers. Now, these terms I'm going to use kind of loosely is that developers might include web developers or system administrators or people that have a kind of higher technical aptitude and skill set that are affecting how Moodle is working. And then instructional designers might be site administrators or those who are building courses or even teachers that have to have those skills in order to utilize Moodle. So it's these two groups that I'm going to speak about first. Right now, I'm going to take a leap and say that all people either fit in one camp or the other. But you might wear both hats at the same at different times, or you might wear one hat more than the other. But odds are that you are all doing at least, or can imagine doing some of these roles. So around the web, there are loads of sites where we can find freelancers looking for work or full-time positions. I did a little bit of research and looked at Upwork, which used to be called Elance. And basically, it's a place that facilitates gig or short contract work. It's a place where anybody can go and get somebody to work on a specific project that they have. For example, like upgrading a Moodle site that's already existing, or developing a specific plugin, or just doing some simple theme customization. It can be a great place to find individuals available for hire. Now, there's over 1,000 people that have Moodle listed as one of their skills, either as a keyword or one of the specific skills that they're able to put in their profiles on this site. So there is a plethora of options available, and this was just one site that I looked at. I also dove into jobs posted at Moodle.org, and over the last year, there's been about 140 postings that fall into a couple different buckets. So doing a little bit of quantitative analysis, is the majority were all for developer roles. These posts were colleges, universities, businesses, other organizations who were specifically looking for developers to help them to do something with Moodle, or to integrate it with another system, or to augment or create a better experience for their users and students. Another role that was advertised was instructional designer, was just a few of those positions. Now, obviously, this is was a small sample, but what I think is important to consider is that even just on Moodle.org, there's a significant number of people who or of roles which are currently unfilled, seeking developers for these roles. And if you look at web developers or programmers in terms of this, the whole economy, not just the Moodle economy, it's one of the top 100 jobs. It's poised to grow very significantly. This is kind of well documented on the web. Now, in terms of development, there has also been some smaller scale projects to facilitate more transactions between developers and end users. And I think that this is also going to be, this is indirect, right? This is not part of the direct cost of Moodle or the direct impact of Moodle outside of Moodle.org and Moodle.com, but poised potentially to grow pretty significantly. One is the Lms Marketplace, which is basically a place where developers can post their code for sale. Now, this is small, but it does exist. And I think it could potentially really facilitate more frequent transactions for these developers, and also potentially be a means for them to monetize all of the time and effort that they've spent in making Moodle better. Not all code necessarily needs to be posted for free to Moodle.org, especially if the developers are relying on Moodle as their livelihood, and this might be one of the ways to do it. Another example would be Moodle Garage, which is a project that I started a couple of years ago, really just to facilitate kind of small scale fundraising, to fulfill a gap, and to fill a gap which I could see as a need, where we might need to get a couple people together who are all using the same plugin to collaboratively fundraise to get something developed and released. So we did projects as large as around $2,500, and while these are small, both of these projects would not be possible but for Moodle, right? We wouldn't even need these if Moodle didn't exist. So these are transactions that add up over time and contribute to this whole economy of Moodle. Another good example is Poodle, which is a basically language learning set of plugins for Moodle that are available. It includes audio, video, whiteboarding, all sorts of widgets. It's developed by Justin Hunt, and it's provided as now as there's some fee for service in terms of getting more premium support, and it is part of his livelihood, right? It's not necessarily his full livelihood, but Justin is using this as a means to support himself and his family. Now, switching gears to that other flip side of the coin in terms of like administrators and instructional designers, it's growing and it's becoming a very important skill set for even just faculty at a college. So a recent report by Edutechnica says that 713 colleges and universities in the U.S. have over 500 students. If that's the case, then odds are that those colleges will have to either employ at least one instructional designer to support their faculty, or more and more their faculty are going to be asked to have that skill set as they're being hired. Looking at in higheredjobs.com, just as another part of my small sample of research, there were 168 job descriptions posted very recently where Moodle is just specifically listed. These were not instructional design roles for this 168, but these were roles that required Moodle or mentioned Moodle in some way. So I don't think I need to take too much of a leap to say that, as more and more colleges use Moodle, the requirement that they have background in at least some learning management is going to go up. So the more and more as technology becomes this foundational or layer on which all colleges and universities operate, this is going to be a necessary skill. Another example, in my line of work, I've seen a growing number of organizations that are actually providing instructional design as a service. So they are familiar with learning management systems, they're familiar with Moodle. Recently, I had the chance to see a demo of course materials by eLearning Innovation, which they had created, and they showed us all on a Moodle site. Now, one of their largest clients is College for America in the US, which is part of Southern New Hampshire University. It's basically a large competency-based education program in the US that's able to offer a really inexpensive college degree to students. And they rely on this content, which was created solely by instructional designers who have experience using Moodle. Now, when I went through and searched for other instructional design firms, there were 1.3 million search results in Google. So these are things I think is kind of growing and growing and growing. All contributing to the idea of this economy of Moodle, right? These being some of those indirect economic impacts. So back to Ben, let's not forget Ben for a sec. So in working with Ben was enrolled at the company that I was working at taking a calculus course. And that course had been created in Moodle using content from the National Repository for Online Courses. And Ben one day kind of called up our support line and was asking some questions. There was some confusion in the order of which he was supposed to be taking some of the courses. So I worked with him and an instructional designer. Full disclosure, the instructional designer was me, but then I was the person that responded. And ultimately what we did was we took Ben's feedback and his experience in using Moodle and using and interacting with the content to better create an experience that would be more cohesive to students all through using Moodle, right? So this is an instructional designer. Ben was able to, his feedback affected that, and that transaction has helped to create, a wholly new and better course using Moodle. And I think it's, these happen, that type of interaction happens every day for students worldwide with instructional designers or administrators or developers or people like you and me, only and if not but for Moodle. And it's really amazing what it's facilitated. Now, another aspect of this indirect economy is obviously courses. This person on the left is Captain Obvious because courses is kind of the most obvious thing I could throw in this presentation as that Moodle is able to facilitate. Now, I did, in my research for this, looked through 100% of the registered sites for the United States. My plan was to do 100% of the registered sites for the top 5 countries worldwide, but that is a significant number of links to click. Now, what I did was break these down and did a little bit of research and some coding of the sites. Full disclosure, I may have miscategorized some, but using like .biz or some .us or looking at some of the TLDs in terms of the domains helped me categorize some pretty easily. We had .edus or colleges, and doing a little bit of sleuthing a little bit more deeply, was able to come up with what I think is a pretty good representation of how registered sites fit into different areas in terms of the on Moodle.org stats. So there was a small number of healthcare sites. There was a larger number of colleges and universities, about 13.8 of all of those registered sites. This is out of a sample of only 3,000 total sites that actually do it, share their information publicly. The rest are not showing their information publicly. There was a significant amount of K-12 and other organizations. So it might be secular institutions or religious institutions that were part of the mix, but also K-12 schools, school support sites, teacher sites specifically were lumped into this kind of school and .org. And then there's this other category that's quite large, which is businesses, right? Businesses that are using Moodle to offer courses in some way, whether it be through the standard PayPal app or something else. And I did see some interesting ones, right? These sites cover all things from aviation training to fitness training programs to witchcraft. I did find witchcraft program and goat sales. So there's a huge mix. What I'm going to do is cover some of the other ones. Some of the other ones that I've seen, which I find really interesting, though goat sales was probably one of the most interesting that I saw in the next couple of slides. So one of the things that has been pretty well documented on eLiterate, which is a great site. They cover a lot of information about Moodle and higher ed and education technology. And they have covered this idea of this educational service providers, and that this is really a growing industry that would probably not exist but for the availability of open source software like Moodle. These are institutions and businesses that have created, they do the instructional design in some cases. They may have augmented their installations of Moodle but they have extracted and created a lot of value by using an open source platform and offering that as a service to colleges and universities nationwide in the US. These include companies like Bisq Education or Learning House or Deltac, which is primarily business programs, Colloquy, which was part of Kaplan University, and one of the largest, which is 2U. 2U started as tutor.com. Their whole platform was built on Moodle when they first got started. And really allowed them to grow all the way. They recently became a public company, and they've created a $1.2 billion business that was really the seed or the genesis of that was using Moodle as an open source software. Now, I'm not saying that this is can fully be incorporated into this kind of Moodle economy, but it definitely is an indirect part of this Moodle economy and having an impact. Another example is one that I've talked to recently, which I just find fascinating. I am from Vermont, which is in the north, in New England, in the United States. And what they've created was a Vermont virtual learning cooperative. So this is a cooperative in terms of the business model. They take, Vermont is largely a rural school. And what happens is if a school is not offering a specific course, any student statewide can go to the VTVLC and request that they find that course somewhere else to be offered online. And the cooperative model is that if the student joins, the institution or the high school or the graded schools also join in, basically they have to give up their curriculums as well as possible course. So you get this kind of interconnected, collaborative creation of online course materials and learning opportunities for students statewide. And this is really this opportunities for learning and this exchange of ideas, and that is just fascinating to me that it has happened and could not have happened but for the availability of Moodle. Another example of a cool company is EduPristine, which they actually just made the news recently by taking a huge investment from DeVry Education, which is a large for-profit institution of higher ed in the US. They provide not credit courses or anything like that, but certificate training programs for financial analysts, which is a pretty niche business. It doesn't have a lot, but it's huge in Asian economy right now is kind of growing. I think that's where they did a majority of their businesses, and they have their entire system and platform is based on Moodle. What you're seeing there is actually a Moodle dashboard, which was from a couple years ago, and it was really, I think, ahead of its time, and is a nice additional example of something that Moodle has helped to facilitate. Another that I'm very intimately involved in is Straighterline. This is my actual day job, right? So Straighterline.com, we offer college for $99 a month. We are using Moodle to deliver our courses. I'm not going to say that we wouldn't exist but for Moodle, but Moodle has really provided us a platform to exist, and has helped us to keep, obviously, to offer a really, really inexpensive way for students to earn courses. If our learning management system costs significantly more, we wouldn't be able to deliver the courses for $99 a month. And this is, we're just a participant in this kind of education, or Moodle as a layer facilitating and acting as infrastructure for online learning or blended learning or hybrid learning worldwide. So, back to Ben, right? So when I was working with Ben and he was a student at Straighterline, he was taking calculus. He took a I think about 5 courses with us, all at the college level, and ultimately transferred those to a college, earned his degree, and then went on to start his own business. So now Ben is running his own business. He got his degree in business management, but had a lot of skills in like SQL and PHP, was able to better apply those. So, Ben has benefited by because of the infrastructure that was created and our ability to deliver courses using Moodle. He was able to upskill. He was able to use and leverage that to his interest to get a better job or to start his own business, to earn more money, to support a family. Those are all indirect impacts of this kind of Moodle as an infrastructure. And, as Ben has gone on to graduate, I think about him often because at the micro level, it's each of us may be working towards different goals, teaching at different levels or teaching to different sets of students or developing new plugins or supporting Moodle in some way. But at the macro level, we're having just a tremendous and invaluable impact worldwide. In aggregate, our efforts, facilitated by and through Moodle, are improving lives around the globe by providing students an opportunity to learn. We're facilitating learning all through this infrastructure. There's I think a few other open source softwares and communities that could claim the same, and that is the economy of Moodle. So there are, I am open to any questions. And yes, the Moodle course creation certificate would be a great opportunity to learn these skills and to that would allow you to participate in this kind of this indirect economy. So is it for the economists in the room? How much did I botch the simple economic tenets? Hopefully not at all.
Okay, it's Gareth from the iMoot team. Thank you, Joseph. Just while we're waiting for the questions, please put them in the chat. And you've got access to a microphone as well. Use that. Thank you. Really comprehensive. I found it really different. I was really surprised by the number of businesses in your statistics using it. Very fascinating. So once again, thank you from behalf of myself and the iMoot team for your presentation and taking the time to present at iMoot.
My pleasure. I was, to be honest, I thought that that's how things would shake out. In my experience, there's many more businesses that have been kind of starting to use Moodle. While those businesses might be fulfilling an educational end, by offering courses at some level, there's a lot too that are offering courses for very specific trainings. I work with another group called Many Nails, and they provide it's a certificate program for nail technicians. So it's people who have gone to like a nail technician training, people that are giving manicures and pedicures, and there's additional training and certification you can get at the state level that's in some cases required to operate. That's all offered online and it's offered through a Moodle site. And I think that that's what we're going to see is as this kind of idea of upskilling gets more and more pervasive throughout the economy worldwide. And I really don't think we're necessarily seeing it in developing countries yet, but we will start to. Right now they're relying on it for K-12 and for higher ed, but as it grows worldwide, I think that it's going to see more and more businesses that are popping up using this pervasive layer of educational infrastructure, which is Moodle, in order to do kind of really, really neat and innovative things, ultimately all kind of driving this upward march of humanity by giving people an opportunity to learn.
Actually, I have one question, if I may.
Sure.
I mean, Moodle's all been focused towards school and educational establishments. Do you think it's entirely suited to businesses? And if not, Is there one key critical thing that it needs that it hasn't got that it should have?
I think it's very well suited for business, and even right out of the box, not with custom development or anything like that required in order to offer a course. I would say that there's one area that would be helpful for development, but it's possible to do that without a lot of time and effort, which is the enrollment plugin is a little bit lacking. But otherwise, if you can cope with the process of registration and using PayPal for payment, that really is the only limitation of offering courses through Moodle for any business. And there are ways around that. There's, Course Merchant, and there's WooCommerce and a couple other sites that integrate nicely with Moodle and create some nice payment gateway opportunities. But other than that, it is my job to evaluate other learning management systems and to stay abreast of what's available. And I honestly believe that by and large, they are all offering a very similar set of tools, but my heart and my gut says that Moodle is really the best because of the community, but also because that it's constantly evolving and rapidly changing. That the fact that you can join the Moodle Users Association and have a say in what's next in terms of core development is something I don't think any other businesses or learning management system hosting companies or learning management system operators are offering. Well, I certainly appreciate everybody coming to this. It's almost 5 o'clock here, so it must be time for a beer for everybody else as well.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'll stop recording.